Hello. It's so nice to come on and to see Joanne and Carolyn and George and Michael and Nancy and Stevie. I feel like we're this group of friends that gets together all the time because we just are. So it's awesome to see that you're here. So thank you for being here. Um, yeah, so here we are. And if you guys would like to share anything with me, I'd love to hear from anyone that has anything to share. And I'm just setting my clock. Um, so I'd love to hear anything if anybody has anything to share. And then, yeah, I just want to say something that I've been noticing myself in my own body is how strong I feel. And yes, I teach 5 classes a week, plus I'm always doing my own stuff. And I've been setting this timer lately to try to be more structured and organized in what I'm doing. It's called the Pomodoro method. So I think of Pomodoro as a tomato in Italian. And it was a college student that came up with this. Focus Keeper is the app that I have. It looks like it's red and it looks like it has a tomato. And it's been really great. So if you're working on anything in life that you want to focus on and you find yourself getting distracted, which is what happens to me. So I put this focus timer on and it's 25 minutes on and 5 minutes off. 25 on, 5 off. And it's really amazing because what's been happening is I put it on for 25 minutes, I go, 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 go. And then for the 5 minutes I'm off, I've been doing more of a flowing yoga practice. So standing up and creating more, and I don't know why I always do this. Of course it's for me, and at that moment it's for me, but I also think about, wow, what could I teach? What could I share? And so then I think about different people that I work with and levels of strength and flexibility and range of motion. And then those that have that drive to stay strong and healthy. And so I've been working on creating safe movements because I'm always taking bone health into consideration, because 50% of women or 55% over age 50 have bone density issues, bone density loss. For men, not quite as high of a rate. So anyway, that's always a part of it. Like, are we bending safely? So when I'm doing my own 5-minute practice and creating these practices, I do it thinking about how can I be as strong as possible in my body, as strong as possible in my joints, keep that range of motion in my body, that flexibility. And I feel so strong. Everything I do, I bend down to pick up things. When I garden, I feel strong. Last night I was out for a friend's birthday celebration and I had to bend down to get something and I had not heels, but wedges on. And I just feel so strong in my body. And so today's practice, I'm going to focus on the stress of aging and trying to help you stay as strong as you can. And I know that many of you that are here, hi Raina, nice to see you. I know that many of you that are here that have practiced with me for years. I mean, Nancy's here, right? Nancy's been with me for 7.5 years. Okay, so some of you not quite as long as her, and Stevie a long time too. And Stevie used to practice 3 classes a week with me, which she still does, but in person. And I'll tell you that I see, and they tell me about the strength and what happens in their body and mind from practicing yoga, whether that's the physical asana or the mental emotional layer. So this works. And that's what I want to say. So, all right, here we go. Let me get back to my post. Let me go back to my place. All right. So, of course, with each name that I name my class, I think about, well, what can I focus on that has to do with that word stress? And so the stress of aging is what we're going to focus on today. And by that, I mean, especially in particularly in the joints, because when we age, we lose muscle and we lose bone. So those are 2 things that are happening. And with the muscle loss comes nervous system communication loss, right? And then also there's the cognitive aspect too, cognitive decline. So all of these things have been very in the forefront of my mind lately for my own self. And I know people are like, oh gosh, just you wait. You think you're old now? I don't think I'm old. But I know that I'm getting older every moment, and I want to preserve my body, my mind, my soul, so that I could be as happy and healthy as possible. And that's what this is all about. So for the mind part of stress, learning how to not be in the place of thoughts. And that's conscious thoughts. Then there's the subconscious thoughts that we don't control from our past, from our lineage, the subconscious mind that works and works. So the meditation and the breath work, the ability to bring your awareness to present moment is how you stop the stress of aging in your brain. So we're going to begin today by stopping aging in our brain. And then today's practice, we are going to do movements. We're going to do floor, all fours, and standing to challenge our joints, to stretch our joints. And it's important that you do what you can do. All movement is good movement. It doesn't have to look like the way that I do it. I'll teach you safe movements, but you do what's appropriate for you. I know that some people have wrist issues. So this is a wedge. You see how it's more wide up here and more narrow here. It's a foam wedge. I don't even know where I got it, but this can come in handy when we do the wrist movements, because the wrist joint, the more you come to an angle like that, like a letter L, the more pressure, that's flexion, and there's gonna be more pressure in your joints. It's also how we make our bones and our muscles stronger, is by creating that stress. So the more you can bring maybe a less angle for some of you. So if you do have a wedge, get a wedge, which I know probably a lot of you don't, but I know some may. And then we'll also be able to roll up the mat if you need that. If you're going to need a chair, have a chair nearby when we stand, if balance is a challenge for you, or even if the words that I said when I said standing was something that triggered you or stimulated you. And then a strap and a block. It's always great to have props. We're going to begin the practice today with an elevation of the body. So I'm going to use a prop, a bolster, because I have one. Not everybody does. This could be pillows from your sofa. Some firm pillows would be better for this as opposed to softer pillows. So firm pillows would be better than soft. And an elevation of the bolster. So I'm actually going to put mine up. The block has 3 levels. That's the shortest level. That's the medium level. And that's the high level. So I'm going to put mine in the medium level. And what this will do, and then if you do have something that you're going to elevate, the block there is to be behind this part of your body. So thinking about the bones here, the clavicle bones, shoulder blades, and arm bones, that is what that block is for. And then for your head, you may need to put a blanket at the top of the bolster for your head. And what was I going to say? I was going to say something about this, and I lost my train of thought. I know what I was going to say. The higher up you have this, when your arms are to the side, the farther the distance these arm bones have to travel to the ground, the more stretch or pulling will happen in the shoulder joint. So for those of you with shoulder issues, having your arms away from your body or having yourself elevated may be a little too much for those with shoulder issues. And that's something I've noticed over the years as I have props in all the classes I teach. So I'm able to use these on everyone. And there's certain times where people with shoulder rotator cuff issues, if they're too elevated and the arms are having to really travel far to get to the ground, there's too much pull in those shoulders. So whatever you need to get, go ahead and get it. It could be that you have 3 pillows propped up here. I want some elevation so you're not completely flat, allowing this process of relaxation to slowly come into the body and for your body to take time to go from one location to the next. So we're going to begin with the tushy on the ground and the bolster behind you, or the pillows or whatever it is you have. And if you don't have anything and you want to go down on the ground, that's okay as well. And then you're going to bring yourself so that your spine is supported by whatever it is you have. And then when you come down, this is where you start to pay attention to your body needs for comfort. And maybe that would be a pillow or another pillow or a blanket underneath the head area. And it's nice to begin with not with straight legs, with bent legs. Because when your legs are bent, you actually allow the pelvis to have a little bit more mobility, and that will actually be protective of the low back, because we are manipulating the spine here. And so because we're manipulating the spine up on the top, that's going to translate down low. So especially those of you with low back issues, pay attention to that. And then close your eyes and move in whatever way you need to once your eyes are closed to get to a place of comfort. When the eyes are closed, it's easier to feel your body. Then you're going to take your arms out to the side. And it's nice to have the eyes closed so you could explore in the journey of lengthening your arms and allowing gravity to stretch the shoulders and the chest. Where is the appropriate place for you? And when you do that, lengthen your neck. So the pressure at the back of your head is in the middle of the head. And notice where you feel a stretch. Notice if you feel it on your forearms. It's important to keep your shoulder, your neck, and your arms limber, so that all the communication of nerves and fluids can travel freely up and down your arms. Bring your awareness to your mouth and soften your jaw. Let your teeth separate. Allow your lips to touch. Notice the activity of your mind. If you'd like to explore straightening the legs with the eyes closed to feel if that's appropriate for your body, take your legs, lengthen your legs. Bring your awareness to your hands, backs of your hands as they're outstretched. And notice, are they at the same level? So just notice what you notice. You closed your eyes and you let them move away from your body. So try to notice maybe some asymmetry or symmetry in your body. And if your legs are straight, dig your heels into the ground, lift up your calves, and then allow your legs to relax. The pinky toes fall open towards the floor, and that's a relaxed hip joint movement. Having the toes kind of flop to the sides. So let's do a body scan where we bring our awareness to different parts of the body. Let your mind go where I direct you and notice everything you can in that part of your body. And especially notice if you could feel anything deep internally. Each cell in your body is actively producing energy. There's exchange back and forth in the cell, every cell membrane. Your body's making energy, it's taking in oxygen, it's using glucose to make energy, it's giving off the byproducts of carbon dioxide. With each exhale, you release the carbon dioxide. You inhale, you bring in oxygen. So all that is taking place. Let's see if you could be very aware of everything that's happening in your body, focusing on one location at a time. And try to keep your mind where you're being directed. So if you do drift off, and I don't mean drift off in terms of sleep, if you drift off in terms of thoughts, guide yourself back. So let's prepare by bringing your awareness down to your left big toe. Keep your mouth closed, breathing gently, allowing your body to breathe itself. Bring your awareness to your big toe, to the toe print part of your toe, to the very top edge of your toe, to the toenail, the left toe, and then the space between the left toe and the next toe. Bring your awareness to the next toe, the next toe, and the next toe. The pads of your toes, the tips of your left toe, and your left toenails. Bring your awareness to the top of your left foot. See if you could feel or notice any sensations. And then bring your awareness to your left sole. And see if you could feel anything, the temperature of the room, any tingling. And to your left heel, notice where the weight is as your heel rests on the floor. The left ankle, the left lower leg, the shin on the top, the calf on the back. And the left knee. See if you could feel anything in that left knee. Your left thigh. The upper muscles of your left thigh are pressing against your largest bone, your femur bone, with gravity. And the hamstrings at the back are pulling away from the femur bone. Bring your awareness to your left hip. It's a ball in the socket. Visualize your left hip. Bring your awareness all the way down to your right big toe. To the toe pad, the toe tip, space between, and all the toes of your right foot. What do you feel? What do you sense? Bring your awareness to the toenails and the top of your right foot. Your right sole. Right ankle. Do you notice any movement? Right lower leg, the shin, the calf. And your right knee. Your right upper thigh. Do you feel the pressure of the top muscles pressing up against your femur bone? And the back muscles pulling away. Bring your awareness to your buttocks. Feel the pressure of the buttocks in the ground. Into your pelvic bones. Can you feel the heaviness of the pelvic bones? Bring your awareness to your lower back. What do you feel right now in your low back? Your middle back and upper back. Bring your awareness to your belly. Do you hear anything? Do you feel anything? Do you notice anything? There are millions of activities taking place right now in your belly. Your lower ribs. Your entire rib cage. Coming up to your neck, the front of your neck, the sides. Nice long neck. Bring your awareness to your left hand, the back of the hand, the fingers, each one, and the thumb, your palm, your left wrist, your left forearm, your left elbow, your left upper arm bone, and your left shoulder. Allow your awareness to travel down to the right palm, the back of the right hand, the right thumb and fingers, your right wrist, your right forearm, your right elbow, your right upper arm bone, your right shoulder, up to your chin, your jaw, your left cheek, your right cheek, your left eye, your right eye, your nose, into the back of your head that is supported. Allow your awareness to go to the back of your body, feeling all the points of connection and support, the floor, the props. And feel the heaviness of your body. Let your arms be heavy, your legs be heavy, your pelvis is heavy, your spine, your rib cage, your head. Let it be really heavy. Feel the heaviness. And bring our awareness to 5 breaths, focusing on the exhale, extending the exhale. So you could count whatever's appropriate for you. Try 4 on the inhale, 6 on the exhale, or 4 on the inhale and 8 on the exhale. So let's create space by exhaling first. Squeeze out every last drop of breath that you could squeeze out of your body. Let's begin. Inhaling. You could count in your mind or allow the inhale to come in as long as it will. When you exhale, go slow, slow it down. Take forever to get the exhale out of your body. And at the very end, squeezing out every last drop of breath. 5 breaths. Keep your mind on your breath. The exhale is getting rid of toxins. Gets rid of carbon dioxide, which is a toxin to your body. So squeeze the breath out on the exhale. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Let the diaphragm, which is at your lower ribs, press up to your lungs to squeeze out even more breath on your exhale. Squeeze out every last drop of carbon dioxide. Wherever you are, finish your last breath. Bring your awareness to your body and how it feels. Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light? Does it feel relaxed? Does it feel like tingling or buzzing? Whatever the words are that you would say about your body. And then if you're nursing an injury, if you have issues in your tissues, I want you to go to where you have the issues. The knee, the hip, the shoulder, the back. Those are the most common. And see if you could feel or sense or notice sensations in that part of your body. And then these next few breaths, I want you to direct your breath to the area you have an issue. And see the breath as bringing in healing energy to wherever it is you have an issue, your knee, your back. And if you don't have any issues, bring your breath to your belly, right around the belly button area, which is your power energy center. And see that breath as a healing energy source. And letting go of the last breath. Bringing your awareness to your fingers and your toes. As you start to bring movement into the fingers and the toes. And then allow your knees and elbows to bend. Sky and shake them if you'd like, letting the shoulder joint settle deep in the socket. And then let's hug yourself here. Having the arms stretched out for a while. We're stretching the shoulder joint, the chest muscles, the shoulder muscles. And then take your head side to side. Notice if you hear any sounds. Notice if there's any sensations. And then bring yourself onto your side. And take your hand on the floor and bring yourself up, leading with the shoulder. I'd like you to just notice how you feel with your eyes open. So the mind contributes a lot to aging and to stress. And that guided body sensation, there's a practice in yoga called Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra. I keep forgetting how to say it. Yoga Nidra, I'm going to say. And so Yoga Nidra is also termed sleep yoga. And I'm not sure if you're noticing in you that you have a real calm sensation that came over you. I feel like I could seriously go to sleep right now. And there's such a heaviness in my body and in my mind. And that's what happens when you direct your brain to the sensory parts of the brain and you stop all that other activity that takes place all day long that contributes to suffering, right? So whether that's accelerated aging, suffering, or suffering, just that's what yoga is for, is to be freed from suffering. So that guided body sensation is great to do. And then the last part of that, I turned that into healing, where I asked you to go to a place in your body that you have issues. And I know for me, with my journey with my hip replacement, my hip issues, I used to always bring my awareness to my hip, bringing in energy, visualizing that there was energy, there was healing energy in my breath to go to my hip. And I worked with a woman in the last 3 months of her life battling cancer. And it was amazing because that's what I did with her most sessions. And she felt so much peace at the end of her life. She was in her mid-50s when she passed. And I know that it has a profound effect. And especially the more receptive and open to receiving healing, there's a lot of power in the practice of yoga for healing. Okay, so let's move our bodies. You could get a wedge if you have issues with your wrists, because I like to do some joint lubrication and movement and stretching in a all fours position. And this is also going to help to deeply set your shoulder. So health for your shoulder, health for your hip joint. For those with hip joints, this is a great way to deeply set the hip joint, because it's the front part of the hip where we have the pressure, and that's where we get arthritis and pain, is in the front. So when you could be deep in the back, same thing with the shoulder. When the shoulders are forward, it's this front part that's causing the discomfort. That's where you develop bone spurs and all of the, protection of the body. So when we're on all fours, we actually are deep in the shoulder and the hip. So get a wedge if you have a wedge, if you need it. If you don't need it, don't do it. But I know that some of you have issues put weight bearing on your wrist. The other thing is to fold up a surface so that you're minimizing that flexion in your wrist. And that can be really helpful. So whether it's a wedge or a blanket rolled up, get something if you need it, because I'd like you to stay here and practice with us. And then if all else fails, and if it's not comfortable for you, you could actually elevate. You could do this on forearms, but I'd like you to be relatively high. So I don't want you to be all the way down the ground. It's a little bit too much for the hip joint for some of you. All right, so here we are on all fours. Pointer fingers are forward. Move yourself around in your joints. There's a lot of play here because these are balls and sockets. So can you sway yourself back and forth and notice how this feels? Especially those of you that have issues where you probably have some jaggedy joints, whether that's because bone spurs have formed or calcium, if it hasn't gotten hard yet, it still goes to the joints for protection. And the minerals that go for protection are very sharp minerals. so we can get some discomfort in our joints from the sharpness of the minerals that's in our body. Then I'd like you to make a big circle with your body. So bring yourself forward, bring yourself to the side, bring yourself back, and bring yourself to the side and forward, and make a big circle. So roll around your hips, roll around your shoulders. Make sure that your range of motion is appropriate for you. And let's go in the other direction. And if you do have shoulder and hip issues and this feels good for you, bring it into your life every day. It's also going to help to move around some of those minerals that come to the joints that are arthritis, part of the arthritis, the inflammation of arthritis, bringing the minerals for protection in the body. So we got to move those. And then bring yourself back to center. Let's come on to fists for wrists for a second. So you're on the in between the first joint and the second joint on the hands, and walk your hands forward. Walk your hands forward and push your body weight back. So you're really not bending or placing too much pressure on your wrist right now. Let's come into extension cow pose. The tailbone, the very base of your spine, pointed up towards the wall behind you. Make a sway back in the low back so that if I had water and I poured it in your low back, it would stay there. It would not spill out the sides. Pull your ribs away from your lower body. Inhale. And then you're going to, let's come into flexion. For those of you that do not have osteoporosis, you could come into full flexion, letting your head hang, shaking your head yes, shaking your head no. But if you have osteoporosis, you could let your pelvis tilt backwards by pointing the tail down right by your knees. But then you don't want your low ribs to move up towards your spine. So you want to keep the upper back flat and just flex the lower part. Now we're going to inhale into our extension cow. Feel that stretch from your low ribs to your pelvis, and then exhale, whichever range of motion you're doing in your flexion. One more inhale, stretch, 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 and exhale. And then bring yourself all the way up. Take your weight off your hands. So moving the spine is important because a healthy spine determines the health of you. And this is where everything travels up and down from the head to the toes, is down the spinal column. So we need our back to be limber. But with osteoporosis, you want to be careful to not press too much on the front vertebra right here in the middle of the body. That's why the flexion in the upper body is really counterindicated. So move at whatever pace is appropriate for you. Let's take the strap. Shoulder joint people, maybe this doesn't look like it's okay for you. So if you can, take your arms wide and let's go side to side here, stretching our side body. Pull the lower ribs away from the pelvis. So we just moved the spine in flexion and extension, and now we're bending the spine laterally in lateral flexion. And try to keep your arms alongside your body. And then if you don't have a strap, or if that's uncomfortable, you could do this. So if your shoulders are not happy, if you have issues in your shoulders, do this so you're bending your spine side to side. And if that doesn't work, you could do this side to side, even maybe trying to let your arm go away a little bit. So there's always options. It's the shape that I want you to have in your body. So it's this bending of the spine this direction, bending the spine in that direction. And that's also going to stretch all of the support muscles that move your body. Okay, so let's do a little bit of the rotation. So rotation, start it safely here in your neck. Look to the side, look to the side. You can let your shoulders move here a little bit. And then go a little bit farther. Let's get the arm involved. So take your arm, let your elbow lead the way. And then take your arm, let your elbow lead the way. So rotating the spine now, getting through those 6 ranges of motion. The spine, we did flexion, extension, lateral, and now we're doing rotation. See if you can feel that right along your belly. And then bring yourself back to center. So I want to mobilize the hip joint here. And I'm going to give you a couple of options. So for some of you, you may want to do this. You're bending, see my hip is bending, and then I come forward into extension. My hip is bending and I come forward. So moving through, rolling through. And then for others, if you want to do a little bit stronger, you're going to lift up into down dog and forward into plank. So this is definitely a little bit more of a strengthening one. This is what I find myself doing often when I take breaks from sitting too long and when I want to preserve my body and keep it strong and healthy as I age. So going through the down dog and the plank flow, or going through the puppy dog into cow. So whichever you choose, roll through your joints, rolling through the hips, and then lengthening the spine to come forward. Let's do 2 more. And then stay back. So stay back in whichever version you're in. If you're up, let your head be forward and walk your heels towards the ground one at a time, and let it be the back edge of the heel. So the pinky toe edge, really push towards the ground. Feel that stretch in your calf. And then if you're on the ground, the arms are straight, the tushies in the air, lengthen your spine. And then try to put both feet onto the ground if you can, towards the ground. So it's not about touching the ground. Bend your knees a little here, bend your hips a little here. Take 1 more breath. And then bring yourself forward. Bring yourself up. So that flow, the down dog plank flow, is a great way to stay strong. Your shoulders and your hips, so in the joints themselves, shoulder joints, hip joints, as long as it's okay for your body. So we've been here for a little while. Let's bring one leg forward and then flip the back toes under. And then push yourself to come up to a standing position. Move your blanket off the mat. So I'm wondering if you're feeling your belly at all, because that last little sequence there, especially if you did the plank and the down dog flow, there's a lot of core work with that. And also flowing back and forth in that puppy dog. You're definitely lengthening your psoas when you come forward into your cow posture and back into puppy dog. So a lot of great movements here. Let's take our block and put the block between your legs. And then look down at your feet. So your feet are block distance. Make sure you're not externally rotated, and make sure your feet are not wider than your block or closer together than the block. And look down at your feet. Toes are pointing forward. So we're going to do a little chair flow, staying in that hip joint and flowing and moving. So with the pelvis, you could tilt your pelvis back. You can tilt your pelvis forward, back and forward, back and forward. And when you are forward with your pelvis and you get that deep curve here, some more than others. I have a pretty strong back curve because I have my hip issues make my pelvis tilt forward. So for this, when you have a big curve like this, it could be a lot of tension in the low back. So let's begin by contracting the core. So hug your lumbar spine. Make yourself like an hourglass in your midsection, an hourglass, and point your tailbone down towards the ground. So come into this with protection in the pelvic area for the low back, for the lower spine. Hands are alongside your body. Shoulders are forward, up, back, and down. Forward, up, back, and down. And then push your feet into the floor. Take exhale. And then inhale. Bend your hip joint. Bring your arms up. And then bring yourself straight. Bend your hip joint. Tailbone reaches down towards the ground. And then bring yourself up. Keep your head up. Arms come up. Thumbs lead the way. Palms face each other. Bending at the hip joint. So bring your awareness to your hip. It's not your knees. So it may take a little while for you to get that, to get the feeling of it being more about the hips bending. Right here, you're bending at the hip joint more than the knee joint. So try to feel that in your body. It's also good to do this near a mirror maybe, and then you probably now will start to feel some heat in the glute area because the glutes lengthen and contract to actually flex the body forward, and that's where we want it to be. We want to be doing it there and not in our spine. We want to use our glutes. Let's come forward and stay here. Stay here. This is called chair posture. Squeeze your block. See if you can lift your toes off the floor. Push your body weight back. And then lift your arms higher if you can. Bend your hips a little lower if you can. Take one more breath. Bring your hands together and then stand up. So we created a little stress there, hopefully not too much. Stress in the leg muscles, stress in the joints. So that's actually good for bone health, for muscle health, and for balance and nervous system. Let's take the feet, stretch your foot, flip your toes under, and then the other one. Flip the toes under, stretch the top of the feet. You've got to keep your feet limber so that you will have less likelihood of falling and tripping and stumbling, because that's where not good stuff happens, is when we fall. And then bend your toes. Make sure you're bending your toes. You're not just coming onto your tippy toe. I don't want that. I really want you to bend and articulate the toes. If you noticed, we did a guided body sensation today as a warm-up practice. And when we did the guided body work, there's so many more areas on the legs and the arms, right? Because there's so many more joints to focus on. And there's a lot of joints. So now you're going to bend your toes like a prancing pony, lifting your heels off. So now we got the ankle joint involved, more joints in the feet, keeping ourselves nice and young, getting that stress of aging out of your body. That's the purpose. Okay, so I'd like to do a little bit of a loaded lunge where we're going to load up the knee joint. We're going to load up the hip, and I think having a chair would be good for this, or a wall. So go ahead and get a chair. So this posture that we're going to do, it's called crescent posture. Let me just show it to you. So crescent posture would be back heel is off and your legs are pretty wide here. When you do go down, when you bend the front knee, you're lengthening the psoas, so you're stretching the front of one leg, stretching the foot with having the foot like that. And then this front leg here, you're actually flexing. So it's opposing movements from one to the other. So it's going to be great for that diagonal pattern aspect of balance. And it's also going to help with asymmetry in the body, which most of us have. So for functional movement, it's really nice to do opposite sides and to notice where you may have dysfunction. So with the crescent posture, having the chair here is going to be handy because balance, this posture has a lot of balance. And I want to say something about this as well. That low back curve, that extension in the back, you want to really protect your back. And the leg that's at the back here, we're going to be stretching the heck out of your psoas. And your psoas is attached to all 5 lower back bones. So to preserve your back here, I want you to be in this, and I want you to be thoughtful with how deeply you go into this and really protect that low back by activating the tummy. So if you think about making a corset action here with your tummy, that you hug your lumbar spine with your core and actually activate that pelvic floor as well. So really like a bear hug for your lumbar spine. Okay, so let's do this. Take your chair, wherever it is, and come into a wide stance. And then also with your stance here, your feet could be close together like tightrope, or they could be a wider distance here. The wider distance is better for those of you that have balance issues, and the more narrow is for those of you that want that challenge, or a little bit stronger in your muscles and stronger in your balance. So let's take one leg back, one leg forward, and slight bend in that front knee. And then you're going to inhale to get as tall as you can, pushing into all 5 toes at that back foot, pushing into that front foot, inhale. And then exhale to bend and come into this. Inhale to come up. Exhale, bend. Inhale, go slow because I want you to experience that stretch, and then come down and bend. Now we're going to add this arm to make it a little bit more intense. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Hug your lumbar spine, especially extra with the exhale. And then one more. Stay here. Now stay here. Bring your arm alongside your body as much as you can. Protect that lumbar spine. If you can take the other hand off, go ahead and take the other hand off. And then if you can add more of a back bend to the upper back, press the heart forward. Please pay attention and be in your body to see what's appropriate. Take one more breath. Bring your hands together. And then we're going to come up by coming up. And let's step your foot forward. And then bring yourself out. So the goal is anti-aging and managing the stress that happens to the body with aging. So this is called Crescent. And it's got a lot of great aspects to it: strength, balance, flexibility. But I will say that sometimes when I teach this, there are people that will contact me and say, oh, I think I might have done a little bit too much. And that's why it's really important that you listen to your body, you go into it slowly, and you have a lot of body awareness when you're doing this. All right, so one foot is forward and one foot is back. The wider the stance, the deeper you'll be able to go into your joints, the more of a pulling action is going to take place, the stretch on the hip flexors. And then set your feet up for whatever, tightrope or a little bit wider, whatever's appropriate for you. And then the back foot, all 5 toes, not just the big toe or the second toe, really grab the floor with that back foot. Feel the pressure of the foot in the back. And then the front foot, press that front foot into the ground. You might actually feel the back of that front leg activated. So this is the whole glute back of your leg area, which can be really great for balance, for posture, for alignment, and supportive of low back, hip, and knee health. So how does that sound? Who doesn't want all that, right? Either your hand is on your chair or not. Your hand is on your waist if you'd like, and then activate the core to protect the low back here. Take an inhale. And then as you exhale, you're going to load up the front hip and the front knee by bending. Keep that back leg straight or close to straight. Inhale up. Exhale. Inhale. And then the slower we go makes this more challenging as well. Now we're going to add the arm. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. It's the journey and not the destination of the postures. So load up the joints and the muscles appropriately. When you come down, stay down. If you'd like to bring the other arm up, bring the other arm up. If you'd like to add a back bend, really stretching the front of the body. Lift your rib cage away from your pelvis. Really pull and lengthen. Take one more breath. Hands are together. And then go ahead and bring yourself up. Step forward. Woo! All right. So healthy aging, strong legs is important for healthy aging. And that's from the ABC study with 3,000 participants. And I believe it was about a 16-year study. It's that the strength of your legs is going to determine the health of your aging. So taking the stress out of aging, we've got to have the legs be nice and strong for us. All right. So let's see. Let's do a little balance because that's really an important part of aging as well. And I'm really tempted to share one of my favorites. So I am going to share one of my favorites. And I know that I don't normally do too much challenging stuff in this class, but today, because we want to take away the stress of aging. There's a little bit more challenge today. I have a wall here. The next posture I'm going to do is called Ardha Chandrasana. Here it is. Now, if this looks crazy for you, your Ardha Chandrasana may be like this. It is loading up the hip in a side position. So there is the component of loading up the hip in the side. And so you may be here with your Ardha Chandrasana. So there are levels to take this. Okay. So whatever you're going to do, a chair, a block, you do you. And that, I guess, is the nice thing about being at home as we practice, because we don't have to worry about how we feel about ourselves in terms of balance, flexibility, or whatever. There's also the opportunity to do Ardha Chandrasana with a block on the floor or with your hand on the floor. So just depending on where you are, we each have different abilities in our body. So I want you to choose whatever. I just gave you 4 different options: floor, block, back of chair, or the top part of the chair. So whatever it is, let's take the foot that you're going to load up on and stand on. The practice here is we want to open up our hips and our heart. So we want, at first, our hips, if we had lights here, at first we're pointing down to the ground. And then when we open up our hips to the side and they point forward. Okay, so you're rolling in your hip joint. So be careful here, especially if you have issues in your hip. I would say that this was a hard one for me to do when I had my hip issues. And it was also 9 months after my total hip replacement that I was in, I believe, teaching yoga for osteoporosis. And I stood in the middle of the class, and I usually do my Ardha Chandrasana on the floor. So I would practice this. My Ardha Chandrasana would be practiced without a block. And I was able to do that in the middle of the class 9 months after my surgery. That's my hip replacement side. So I couldn't do that at first. And then I built myself up. So do what's appropriate for you. It's a lot of amazing things in this posture. Take one foot, whatever foot you're going to stand on, toes are pointing forward, and then bring your hand onto the chair. Hug your lumbar spine with your core. So activate your core. Lift your leg and then open up in that hip joint to turn to the side. The leg lifting is really important here. Arm up towards the sky. So this is taking away the stress of aging. So do what's appropriate for you and don't do too much. Take one more breath. And then go ahead, slowly keep your head up when you come out. Slowly bring yourself out. The other great thing about this Ardha Chandrasana is that our bladder, uterus, if you have one, bladder, uterus, and rectum are all sitting right in front of each other, like right next to each other, deep in our body, being supported and held up by the lower pelvic floor area. And they are constantly being pressed down with gravity. So when we do this, we actually take gravitational force off of those organs and other organs as well. So you're actually taking that downward pressure of gravity off your organs. So I was taught that there's a hormone balancing component to this. So yeah, all right, and who the heck doesn't need hormones balanced? That's gonna be a stressor. All right, so the toes are pointing to the chair, and you're gonna bring yourself onto your hand, whether it's a frosted cupcake hand, contract your core, lift your leg, open your body, lift up your arm, lift that leg that's in the air, and balance on that foot. Take one more breath. And then bend the standing leg to bring yourself out. So that's definitely a posture that I, as a teacher in a class, am very cautious with. I don't usually have people do that in the middle of the room. There are certain people I would not want to do it in the middle of the room and have people go up against the wall to do that. So if it is something you're going to bring into your practice, the half moon balancing posture, make sure that you're safe, because no matter how strong you are, it is possible to fall out of these things. And that is not good. Okay, so we're going to go down on the ground, and I'd like to do a little bit more with the spine and the core and the trunk, and moving your spine. And for this, you'll need a blanket. And we'll need a block. So a blanket and a block. And then when you come down, I'd like to share with you about getting down, because we put a lot of stress in our joints, and so many of us do this. So can you just do this for a second? Notice how my hip joint is not bending at all. This is all knees. When I bend like this, it's knees going forward. And see if you could feel it going into your knees. I do. I feel my knees when I do this. Okay. Now let's keep the knees frozen and bend at your hip. So just bend forward here at the hip. Now, bend it, have your feet wide. So have your feet pretty wide like this, okay? Pretty wide. Now, bend at your hip. Now bend at your knees. Bend at your hip, bend at your knees. Keep your spine nice and long. And then bring yourself down to the ground. So that's a way to get down safely, to load up the joints in the proper way. So starting to move, even learning how to move better, is going to minimize the wear and tear in your joints. Right? Stress is asking for more than what your body can give, or more than whatever it is can give. All right. So let's take, before we go down, let's do plank, because I really want to get back to that 1 minute plank. I think that this is a number one thing to do daily is plank. So we're going to do a 1 minute plank before we go down onto the ground. And you could have your pointer finger pointing forward, and then we're going to come into the plank. So you're either going to go full plank, modified plank, or come down into the forearm plank. All right, flip your toes under, bring yourself up into your plank posture. We're going to do 1 minute here. See if you can do that. Take your feet wide this time. Go really wide with your feet, and then go a little bit wider with your hands. Pointer fingers are forward. And notice how that gives you a lot of support, right? That seems to be very helpful. And then contract your core, point your tailbone down, bring your awareness to your fingertips. Press your fingertips into the ground, all of them, the thumb and every single fingertip. And then lengthen your neck. Don't let your head round. Hold your heavy head up. And then bring your awareness to your spine, long spine. And then at the tailbone, point the tailbone down in between your heels, right in the center. And then push your body weight back so your heels are moving back. Feel that strength, and then push away from the floor with the feet, push away from the hands. Keep your head lifted. And then bring yourself down. So that's another thing I've been doing when I take my breaks is I do planks, and I'll come into that wide version we just did, and I'll start to walk sideways. So like a crab. So I'll come into my plank, and then I'll start walking around the room in my side plank, because that's going to really strengthen not only the core and everything else, but it starts to get into some side body muscles. All right, we're going to come down into the ground now. So bring yourself today, definitely a little bit more of a challenging class. Hopefully you're staying in your appropriate zone of challenge. Let's take your hand over to the away from you. This is preventative. So this is a lot of preventative stuff we're doing in our body. All right, take your feet wide as your mat. Arms are out to the side. Let's stretch our body, moving the hip. Notice what today's practice so far has done for your body. Stay to one side, let your head go to the other side. If you'd like to lift your arm off the floor of the opposite side that your knees are in, you could stretch that side of your body. Take one more breath. And then bring yourself up and over to the other side. Let the head go opposite of the knees. Reach the arm off the floor if you'd like.
Then bring yourself back to center. I like to do a bridge flow. I think bridge is one of the most therapeutic, preventative postures that there is in the practice of yoga. Strengthening the back of the body, undulating the spine. It's such a good posture. Moving fluids, opening up, moving those arthritic deposits I was talking about earlier. Take your block between your knees, walk your feet as close as you could get them to your body. Take your blanket away from the back of the head. Actually, walk your feet away from your body. Take your blanket away from the back of the head. Let's do a little flow first. Slide your shoulder blades closer to the spine. Palms are facing inward, thumbs are up towards the sky. Let's let the low back flatten into the floor. Take an inhale here, and then exhale. Contract your core, press the low back into the floor, and now inhale. Lift the tushy off the floor, lift the left arm up, let the head rotate to the right, and exhale to lower. Don't lift your rib cage away from the floor too much here. Only lift up to about your heart. Switch sides. The left hand goes up, the head goes to the right. You push away from the floor, lifting your body away from the floor. Last one each side. And then bring yourself back to center. Now you're going to walk your feet closer to your body. Arrange your upper body so that you slide your shoulder blades closer to your spine. Make a nice flat pad for your upper back. Then pick your head up, tuck your chin towards your chest, lengthen your head. Your arms could be bent for those of you that are newer or maybe don't quite have a lot of strength to lift yourself away from the floor too much. Bending your elbows is a good option. Otherwise, for those that have that ability to lift higher, you could clasp your hands. So let's squeeze the block, squeeze the tushy, flatten the low back into the ground, and then you're going to begin to peel your spine away from the floor. Close your eyes. Bring yourself up, up, up. And then try to bend the spine as much as possible by pressing the heart up towards the sky and over towards the face. So a nice deep back bend. Squeeze your block, squeeze your tushy. This also helps to settle the low back, to settle the lower spine. We pulled on the low spine a lot today with the practice. Take one more breath. And then slowly, slowly, slowly bring yourself down. Take your blanket back behind your head. Bring your knees into your chest and rock side to side. Put your feet up. Let's inhale to stretch. Exhale, flex. Inhale, exhale. And then circles. This is an inversion when the legs are up above the heart like this. So bringing the fluids back to the heart. This is for your heart. Taking the stress of your heart having to pump the fluids through the system all day, every day. And then draw the knee views in. So it's time for Shavasana. Your choice. If you have the bolster, you can put the bolster underneath the knees. If the low back is bothering you from today's practice, use a chair or legs at the wall to help settle the low back. So go ahead and get whatever you'd like.
Bring yourself into your Shavasana.
Bring your awareness to your breath. Focus on the exhale. Let the breath do the magic. To deepen your breath. Awareness to your toes. Draw the knees into the chest. feel good after today's practice. There's a lot of extension in the postures we did today. And so this is the opposite. This is flexion. Rolling on. This is the opposite. This is flexion. Rolling on to your side, and from there, gently pushing yourself into a seated position. Let's place the hands today on the thighs. Slide the hands all the way back. The elbows are underneath the shoulders. And when we do today, we'll bring our awareness to our heart, right in the center. Press your hands into your thighs. Take a deep breath here. Inhale. Yes. Bow your fingers in namaste. Namaste. Well, so for some of you, you got to be careful with your back. See how you feel. The crescent pose, the chair pose, those do have extension in them, and it's really important that we learn how to protect our low back when we load up our hip like that. And because so many of us develop dysfunctional pattern around bending, especially bending properly using our hips, there's more movement in the knees and the spine, which is why there's so many issues in those joints, contributing to inflammation and breakdown of the joints. So learning how to functionally move properly, to load up the joints, to create what's necessary in the joints. So I hope that none of you poked any monsters of pain in your body, those with issues in your tissues. Hi, bye. All right. Well, I hope you guys feel good. Oh, hi, Lauren. Did I know you were here? I don't think so. Hi, Lauren. Yeah, good, George. And I hope that you didn't stimulate anything in your body that's not good. So hopefully it was good. Definitely a little bit of a stronger stress management type class today, physically. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. We have one more class next week in this session, and then I'm off for a week. Not sure where I'm going. I'm not going to Scotland though. Probably going to go up to Cambria. It's one of my favorite places on the beach area, out at the beach. All right, Stevie, great. Oh, awesome, Stevie. Well, that's lovely to hear. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Have a lovely day.